You all heard the words before. True Pokemon fans hate Pokemon. That is true, but there's a new saying that has surfaced in recent years, and that is of course the Pokemon cycle. And no, it's not a bicycle with Pikachu stickers or the red, blue, green, yellow bicycles being another damn Kanto reference in BDSP cause Gen 1 and Masuda is directing. It's also not a form of evolution of Pokemon, but kinda looks similar. What is the Pokemon cycle? And is it a real thing?
Kirim, red.
Hello fellow Duricans. Recently on Twitter there was the drama. Yeah, fucking shocking, right? Twitter not being in peace. Anyways, around the time Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver began to trend on the website. I don't know if some PokeTuber I don't give two craps about started this or something, but for some reason, people began to talk about how Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver is overrated, how it was such a bad game because it had a cancer level curve, how it fixed nothing from Generation 2, ignoring the fact that areas missing from Kanto from Gold and Silver was returned in the remake, so that's a rebuttal right there. I don't know, I haven't done a review of these remakes, and I will do it sometime in the future when a new game isn't coming out fucking soon. Anyways, the point is, the fandom started to call Heart Gold and Soul Silver overrated. As a Pokemon fan that has been staying with the franchise since Generation 3, this was shocking for me. The Johto remakes since they came out have always been considered one of the best Pokemon games alongside Black and White 2. It would have been a bold take to call these games bad, but now the fandom think it's an overrated remake? What the hell? And this incident on Twitter, my fellow Jerrycans, is why I wanted to make this video. Is there really a cycle with the fandom that makes opinions shift and change? The Pokemon cycle is a very loose term, and its definition changes depending on who you ask, what and where you search, so it's kinda hard to define the fucking thing. Everyone has weird varying versions of what the Pokemon cycle is. It's as if everyone has different opinions and general consensus is hard to define in an anarchic environment like the internet. Gasp, shock. That being said, I will define the Pokemon cycle as a cycle of fan attitude towards a Pokemon game and generation. Fan attitude towards a Pokemon game or generation goes from bad to good or good to bad, depending on what version of the cycle you have. Now, if you search the term Pokemon cycle or Pokemon Fandom cycle on Google Images, you actually get many results of what the Pokemon cycle is. I looked through some images and I was able to categorize two different versions of the cycle, so it'll be easier to discuss. Part 1. The cycles on the internet. The first major cycle followed this path. First, a new Pokemon game gets announced. Second, the people get very excited about it. Third, the game releases and gets praised by critics and the fans. And fourth, the game grows stale after a while and the fans start to see all the flaws. Fans hope for the best for the next game. Then again, a new game is announced later, starting the cycle again. The second major cycle is the complete opposite. First, a new Pokemon game gets announced. Second, however, the fandom does not get excited. Instead, the fandom complains and the internet explodes. Third, the new game is announced, fans eventually warm up to the game and it sells well. Some cycles even claim fans will say the new Pokemon are superior to the older ones, while some cycles claim that fans will be sad that it's gone when a new game's announced. Conversely, some cycles even claim that there's a honeymoon period where fans will start to find things lame. Then finally, the cycle repeats with the new Pokemon game coming out. Confused yet? Well, I am too. Like I said, the so-called Pokemon cycle that fans claim to exist seems to be wildly different depending on who you ask, and there seems to be no general consensus. Anyways, still, there are two main differences between the cycles. The first cycle implies that the fans will get excited when a new game is announced, and the second cycle implies that the fans will be angry when a new game is announced. And that's the thing. You see, this is just one of the moments that show how Pokemon games and fans have changed over the years. So many people say, oh, Pokemon fans are just all haters and naysayers, but that is not the case, at least in the past. Back in the old days, whenever a new Pokemon game was announced, people would get excited for it. I remember getting excited for Pokemon X and Y because it was gonna be the first 3D Pokemon game, and they have made good games for 4 times in a row at that point. I was hyped for ORAS because it was a remake of my favorite region, and the last 2 remakes were good that I enjoyed. These days though, it's been a constant repeat of, how are they gonna fuck it up this time? How are they gonna fuck up a third Pokemon game? How are they gonna fuck up the first mainline HD console Pokemon game? How are they gonna fuck up the Sinnoh remakes? I'm not saying Pokémon Legends Arceus will be bad. I haven't played it yet at this time of making the video, but we faced a row of meh to terrible Pokemon games for almost 6 years now, so I think we have good reason to be fucking worried. So the second cycle where fans get angry and worried before the game comes out seems to be more fitting and seems to be real. Still, it doesn't necessarily mean this version of the Pokemon cycle is true. Is Sword and Shield gonna be missed after some time and become nostalgic? Will Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in a few years be called an underrated remake? Well, let's talk about that. Part 2. Bias and nostalgia when the games are bad. I think I came up with an explanation why opinions on Generation and Pokemon games keep shifting, and the culprits are the following: nostalgia, bias, false memory, and the fact that Pokemon games have gotten objectively worse compared to the older games. Like, you may like Sword and Shield, but it's an objective fact that the game has less features than Black and White 2, for example. It's not an opinion, it's an objective fact that Black and White 2 didn't cut any Pokemon, and Sword and Shield decided to do Dexit. It's an objective fact that Black and White 2 had many areas to explore in the post-game, and Sword and Shield had none. It's an objective fact that Black and White 2 had over 40 gym leaders to battle in a tournament, and Sword and Shield had 8 and a lazy battle tower. Anyways, how does nostalgia, bias, false memory, and games getting worse factor into this? Well, recently in Korea, around the time BDSP came out, this meme pic spread like wildfire on Pokemon internet communities. Yeah, Pokemon's iconic duo of developers are huge meme lords here. It's really funny, and I'll translate it for you guys. In 2016, we said, "Damn, ORAS was a good game." In 2017, we said, "Damn, Sun and Moon was a good game." In 2018, we said, "Damn, USUM was a good game." In 2019, we said, "Damn, LGPE was a good game." In 2021, we said, "Damn, Sword and Shield was a good game." Do you finally get it now? Pokemon has always been a great game.
何も答え。
Well, if you don't get the joke, it means that whenever a new Pokemon game comes out, because the Pokemon games have been getting worse and worse, we kept re-evaluating the previous installment every year because they were quote-unquote better, and thinking it's good retroactively. Like how he said Let's Go was a good game after Galar, and Galar good after BDSP. Sort of like a cycle, And in the end, the games are not great, and that is the punchline. Let's take Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, my least favorite Pokemon game, tied with BDSP for example. I already did an hour-long video why I fucking hate it so much. Go watch it if you haven't, but I hated how it completely squandered the potential of being a third game or a sequel to Sun and Moon. How it was just basically a giant scam of selling the same game twice with pointless additions such as the lazy Kanto nostalgia or lazy minigames. How it completely fucked up the story of Sun and Moon, then just made it worse, and how it barely fixed anything of Gen 7. However, after Sword and Shield came out, USUM doesn't seem too bad anymore, We think to ourselves, hey, at least USUM had all Gen 1 to 7 Pokemon. Hey, at least USUM wasn't a piss-easy baby game like Sword and Shield. Hey, at least USUM had decent graphics for the system it was on, unlike Sword and Shield's eye-raping nightmare of graphics. You see what I mean? Because the new games are so bad, we just remember the quote-unquote good stuff from the past bad games. We get a false memory that the games had just good stuff, and we forget how bad USUM's story was or how obnoxious the changes from Sun and Moon were. Our minds achieved a bias towards the game, and that becomes nostalgia. We became nostalgic for Ultra Shit and Ultra Piss, a terrible game. That, my friends, is brainwashing or gaslighting at its finest. And this is the cycle when Pokemon games are bad. New games announced, ew, that's disgusting. Months or years pass, we get sad and nostalgic for it because the newer games are worse. And rinse and repeat. You know, BDSP being terrible is not what scares me. BDSP becoming underrated when the eventual Gen 5 remakes come out is what's truly terrifying. Imagine the Black and White remakes in 2025 or whatever are so bad, we look back fondly at BDSP because it was at least faithful. Or, what will be truly terrifying is if Pokemon gets somehow worse and we look back at Sword and Shield fondly. This is an endless cycle of hate to love as long as the games are bad. Love to hate. Gosh, I feel like I'm reciting the end of 1984 right now. Instead of Winston Smith looking at the poster of Big Brother, we, the Pokemon fans, are looking at a poster of Junichi Masuda instead. He gazed up at the enormous face. 151 days it had taken him to learn what kind of smile was hidden beneath the handsome face. 2 Charizard-scented tears trickled down the sides of his nose. But it was alright. Everything was alright. The struggle was finished. He had won the victory over himself. He loved Pokemon. Part 3. However, back when the games were good. But this cycle only applies when the Pokemon games are bad. What about the games that were good? Does the other cycle I showcased in the beginning apply when the games were good? Well, talking about Pokemon fandom history is tricky because it's hard to find an evidence to support my claim of how events played out. Just a random thread or comment from 10 years ago won't prove anything because it'll be an individual's thoughts, not general consensus. Again, general consensus kinda sucks. So, you have to take my word for it and trust my recollection of memories about the Pokemon fandom, okay? Anyways, well, it's my belief that when the games are good, cycles don't matter. Each individual game is different, with different qualities, strengths, and weaknesses. There really is no one unified cycle. Let's look back at several cases in the past. Generations 3 and 5. Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire and Pokemon Black and White had the similarity of being back to basic soft reboots, with very polarizing Pokemon designs. Remember how Gen 1 and 2 fans complained about Hoenn Pokemon design? And Gen 3 and 4 fans complained about Unova Pokemon designs. Anyways, the cycle for these games were the following. First, a Mew Pokemon game comes out. Second, fans complain about stuff such as Mew mechanics or Mew Pokemon designs. Third, fans start to warm up to the Mew mechanics or Mew Pokemon design and the games sell well. And fourth, years pass and fans start to love it. Let's also talk about Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver like I discussed in the opening, and Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green too, because oh boy, I think these games are good, but some parts of it didn't age well. Why isn't there a single perfect Pokemon remake? Maybe it's because remakes faithfully adapt parts of the game, and some bad parts of the original games get adapted too. Such examples include the goddamn 151 Pokédex in the Kanto remakes, or the level curve of the Johto remakes. Anyways, I think these two games qualify for the first cycle I mentioned in the beginning, where the game gets announced, people get excited for it, comes out and is praised, then as the years pass by, the fans start to see the flaws. There are also games I think will not go through the cycle, and that is Emerald, Platinum, and Black and White 2. These games are one of the best Pokemon games, and they really don't have glaring flaws like Heart Gold and Soul Silver's level curve, for example. No game is perfect, sure, but there aren't major flaws that break the whole experience. They have been considered great when they were released, and they are still considered great by most of the community today. Anyways, my point is, when the games are good, there is either no cycle, and if a cycle exists, it's different according to each game's quality, strength, and weaknesses. And this is what opinion should be, right? Don't lump all Pokemon games into one cycle. While the Pokemon games all follow the same format, every one of them is different and unique. It's only when the games are bad and the games get worse that a cycle of fandom coping happens. Anyways, in conclusion, if there is such a thing as a general consensus in the Pokemon fandom, a cycle in the fandom exists depending on the game. It may not even exist at all. When the games are bad, it's a process of people coping and getting a false memory that the previous games were good. A good game needs to come out to break the cycle, and hopefully, at the time of making this video, I hope Pokémon Legends Arceus break this vicious cycle. I guess my point of the video is, I hope Pokemon gets better. However, cycles are mob mentality thinking in the end. Like I said in the beginning of the video, everyone has different opinions and general consensus is hard to define in an anarchy environment like the internet. I really hate Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and still do, and on the other hand, I really like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. I think ORAS is a wonderful remake, and BDSP is the worst remake possible. I also think Platinum had a better story than Black and White. Like, these are all my own singular opinions. This is my thinking. Among the viewers, how many will have the same exact opinions as me? There may be some people with few similar opinions, but I'm pretty sure everyone has different opinions on a huge and diverse franchise like Pokemon. So what I'm saying is, don't let the general consensus or mob mentality or even my reviews get to you. After all, my reviews are just me expressing my opinion on a product. You are in control and the judge of your own opinions in the end. So in short, to answer the question, does the Pokemon cycle exist? The answer is, kind of. But I wish it didn't exist. Thanks for watching the video. I'll be streaming Pokemon Legends Arceus on my Twitch and YouTube accounts, so look forward to that, fellow Jerrykens. Follow my socials or join my Discord server to get updated on it.